Well, welcome. This is Julie Allison, and with me is my friend Rob Perry. And today we're going to talk about this thing about watching and listening to gurus. And, do we hang on every word that a guru says, or should we be more discerning? So the first thing we want to do is, get this into context. Why do we treat people like a guru? Well, we were talking about this earlier, and we talked about from childhood our conditioning. So where we don't know where the word guru comes from at the moment, but and it's not really an issue, but we were always taught to have respect, which is okay, and just to listen to those people in, like a figure of authority, or, when you were always told as a child to listen to your elders because they were always right. And we were never taught to be discerning within. We were never taught, actually, is this correct? So we literally went about our childhood with what people told us to do and what people told us were right. And we've grown up with that. So when we look at somebody in the media, somebody in the public domain that tells us something, we seem to automatically assume they are correct. Now, is that right or wrong? And I just wonder what your thoughts are on that, Rob.
I think you're right. Absolutely right. It's an interesting word. We're saying guru, which obviously has a sort of a Hindu spiritual ring for us that goes back in terms of Western thinking to the Beatles disappearing to live in a cave with their guru and learn a new age spirituality. So it's got that kind of woo-woo connotation, which is not really fair to it. So gurus are teachers, and we don't have anything against teachers, but the word teacher always makes me think of school and being taught prescribed syllabus that is correct, and that I wasn't encouraged to argue with. I was encouraged to agree with and then parrot back. So we're being taught, firstly by our parents, then by our teachers, then perhaps by any kind of spiritual mentors that might come into our young lives, to believe certain things that are designed to control us. And these aren't sinister things. It's a question of how do we fit into the social norm, and what do we need to grow up as to be good, connected adults in the 3D world. So we learn kind of through fear to bottle things away and not question too much. So as you were saying, if you were today to jump onto any social media platform, you could be really forgiven for being completely misled, because there's an awful lot of outright nonsense out there. There's an awful lot of absolutely brilliant wisdom out there. The question I think we need to discuss is, how do we filter that? What's our
Absolutely.
response to it, and how do we know, is this any good? Am I being misled, or should I follow this? Is this great? What do you think?
Yeah, I think we tend to find some of these, we'll still call them gurus, that have been on the scene, let's say, in the public domain, and in the media for maybe 20, 30 years. So again, we automatically assume they must still be so wise and still getting what we would call the true information. But what I think we should do now, and this is what a lot of us are taking a step back and seeing, is to actually look and discern for ourselves, teach ourselves to do this go within. And what is going within? It's looking at the outside world and then taking, like we've done, take the step back and start really looking at something from a different perspective. So looking at something, as I always say, from being the neutral observer, rather than completely being in the control of the guru, rather than uh, hanging on every word that the guru says, because how do we know that they've had all the correct information? How do we know that they have perhaps not been infiltrated, or just misunderstood the information. And that's always the case with us. I always, double check the information I get from my guides. And so what we need to do is go in with a different perspective, see what's happening, and there'll be times when a guru will say something and 80% of it I'll be listening, and what I don't know about Europe, but it's what seems to feel expansive when I go within. So even this thing of going within, how do you feel about the information you're given? Now, I would say any time that you're in fear with this information, that so they've said something to put the fear in you, is all you're doing there is feeding the fear. And from what we've learned is from our guides and from our higher self is there should be no fear. Fear is a false reality, false grid is what I want to call it. Literally a false belief. If I say grid, I just mean a belief in this context. So anytime that somebody said something and it makes us feel fear, in all those low frequency energies, anger, shameful, all those kind of things, that's not true, and we need to really work through. And is it triggering us from something else? Is it triggering us from a trauma in our past life? But also, is it just something that just doesn't feel right? Whereas if somebody says something and I think, wow, that's so expansive, that feels so exciting, that's something that I could get my teeth into and ask more questions myself on this, it feels so right, that feels more that it's within my truth to me. Is that how you feel, Rob, about it?
Yeah, and again, it's that keyword that you keep saying and I keep saying, it's truth.
Our own truth.
You know, you know, you know all the answers because they're available to you, but you've been conditioned not to hear them or accept them. So if you're on social media, let's say you're on YouTube and you've found someone who said something a little bit interesting, you need to listen to that and say, why is that interesting? And what part of it interests me and why? And try to identify a place in yourself that might want to take that one kernel. And you can have a 20-minute YouTube broadcast or a half hour or whatever, and there might just be one nugget in there for you. So
I found
that's
that.
really important to me, is that you just don't try and take it all on because it's too much and it's being condensed for you. You can always revisit, and you can always look at other recordings from that same person. I think my biggest problem with social media, which is how most of us gather our news and information today, is particularly in the spiritual world, Julie, is that there's a great drive to make people feel inadequate so that they latch on.
Yes.
So they leave you feeling like, oh, I haven't done that, or I can't do that yet.
Yes.
Oh, I must be failing. I must be falling behind spiritually, which is really not the case. And in my eyes is just unacceptable behavior.
Absolutely.
Because nobody should be left feeling in any way inadequate or left behind, because no one is.
Yeah.
So it's that truth. Ask yourself, is this true or not? And trust your intuition. Don't just follow.
Yeah. And this makes it feel like, I want to say that from what Rob was saying there, the immediate thing came to me of disempowered. Do you feel disempowered because you can't do something? Because what is happening through conditioning again is you're comparing yourself to that guru and thinking that guru knows everything. They've spent so many years working with spirits, working with guides, that they must know everything. And again, you know everything, all the information, all the answers are inside of you. And this is where both myself and Rob, this is why it's our passion to bring these podcasts to you, is to let you know that stop being disempowered. You can control this yourself. This thing about the control being from outside of us, and let's say those that want to keep us disempowered, that want to keep us under control is, again, a false. I just want to go, all we can say is we observe that it's a false reality. And so every time you feel that, be aware, just become aware that those thoughts of you're comparing yourself against somebody and thinking you're not good enough for what, to them, you're not good enough, that you can't be getting the right information, or you don't know how to get information. Please go and find out. Just find out how to do this. Go within. And it's
Absolutely
quite
go with it.
easy, isn't it? We want to say it's easy because we do it all the time, but we've trained ourselves. We've trained ourselves to do that. Which has allowed us to become aware of us saying, hang on a minute, this person who's been in this spiritual world for a long time, or it might be a collection of people, and nothing wrong with what they're saying. That might be true for them. That might be true for them. We're not saying anything against anyone because we're not judging anything. But what we want to wrap up this podcast with is absolutely saying that don't be disempowered. Be in your own control. You can create your own reality by thinking about your thoughts coming from within. It's never from the outside, which is what we've been conditioned to all this time. So think about your own intuition. It just comes so naturally if you allow it. And the only reason it doesn't is I can see a lot of people, a lot of my clients, it's because they're in fear of it. It's because they don't understand. And because somebody else has told them, they might have a guru who's a hypnotherapist telling them, do you know, Julie, I can't be hypnotized. They've told me I'm not, I just cannot be hypnotized. And instead of thinking it's that person that can't hypnotize you, but you take that thought away, you take that belief away, and you can do anything you want. You can hypnotize yourself by going within, by just being still and taking a moment and listen to your own intuition. And that's how you just open up, isn't it, Rob? You just open up
Yeah.
to what is it within me that is ready to come out to give me all the messages, so that I know how to discern from what's right outside and what's wrong. And don't get us wrong, I love listening to other people. They can be so inspiring. But the same people can also, I can suddenly hear something and go, "Oh, that little bit doesn't feel right." So that's what we want you to come away with from this session is be discerning what, with what we're saying all the time. Challenge what we say all the time, because we love that. We love those challenges to what we're saying. And I think that's, as much as we need to say about this
I
today.
think so, Julie. You're right. Just intuition. If you work with your intuition, the right mentors will fall into your lap. Really, you will hear the right people, say the right things, and you will know who to listen to.
Mm.
The minute you have an alarm bell, stop listening.
Mm.
Simple as that.
Yeah. You'll just feel it. You will, allow yourself to feel what feels expansive and empowered, and what feels disempowered and out of your control. You soon get to know the difference. Yeah.
Yeah. Trust yourself.
Yes. Okay. Well, thank you for listening to this podcast. Julie and Rob will be talking in the next podcast. We hope you are enjoying these, and let us know if you want us to talk about any other subjects. We're quite happy and open to talk about anything you want to know. Lovely.
Absolutely.
Okay, bye for now.
Take care, everyone.